Islam is exclusive. Anyone outside of Islam is regarded as kafir or infidel until they are converted either by fear, force or terror.
But wait. I can be Australian and Muslim. You get that, right? It's a nationality.
Or white Australian.
How can you be Australian? How can you be Australian when you are supposed to support Sharia law above all other law when Australia is democracy?
No, you're meant to follow the law that you're living in, you know. We're living in Australia.
Until you populate the country enough that you can take it over.
Blair Cottrell is a Melbourne-based carpenter and political activist who decries multiculturalism and speaks about the value of true Australian culture. He has a knack for triggering the SJW-infested mainstream media for reasons we will go into in this video. He recently gave an interview with Channel 7, who was subsequently attacked from all corners as going soft on racism. Here is just one example from the so-called rightwingnews.com. Blair Cottrell, leader of the UPF, has in the past said, "Yes, I am a racist," yet his racist views were not challenged on Sunday night's news program. He also expressed his admiration for Adolf Hitler and has been convicted of stalking and recklessly causing serious injury. ABC presenter Charlie Pickering said Channel 7 needed to get its shit together. Former Cabinet Minister Craig Emerson said 7 were promoting Jew-hating neo-Nazis. One Twitter user said she was struggling to get my head around how low Channel 7 has sunk. Cottrell responded on Twitter by saying, "Funny how all the media corporations attacking Channel 7 for interviewing me actually all contacted me for an interview as well. But because I gave Channel 7 exclusivity and said no to the rest, they're all stamping their feet, accusing Channel 7 of racism. They are like children." Considering the fact that this was by no means his first ever media appearance, it makes sense. The mainstream media are certainly not above having a sook when they don't get their story. He's been accused of being a Nazi, a bigot, and pretty much every name in the regressive bingo. I don't view myself as a far-right or neo-Nazi, but by the standards of the current political system, yes, I am a racist. So what's the truth? Is he really a Nazi? What about his political party, the United Patriots Front? Today, I'm going to take an objective look at the facts in order to answer these questions once and for all. We are socialists. We are enemies of today's capitalistic economic system for the exploitation of the economically weak, with its unfair salaries, with its unseemly evaluation of a human being according to wealth and property instead of responsibility and performance. And we are all determined to destroy this system under all conditions. Adolf Hitler, May 1st, 1927. To be fair, there is a debate over whether Hitler said this or if it was his fellow party member Gregor Strasser, a prominent Nazi party member until 1934, where he was killed in the Night of the Long Knives. Who uttered the words is ultimately irrelevant. They were both leading members of the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Who were the National Socialist German Workers' Party, you ask? Well, that's just the long way of saying the Nazi Party. The reason I bring this up is because calling someone a Nazi has become a favourite smear of the media when dealing with those guilty of wrongthink. When thinking critically, it is important to know what the facts are. We need to ask, what is a National Socialist? Socialism is defined as any of various economic and political theories advocating collective or governmental ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods, or a system of society or group living in which there is no private property, or a system or condition of society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the state. Nationalism is defined as loyalty and devotion to a nation, especially a sense of national consciousness, exalting one's nation above all others and placing primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interests as opposed to those of other nations or supranational groups. So National Socialism can be defined as an ideology that promotes state ownership or control of the means of production whilst emphasizing the importance of the nation and nationalism. Some would make the claim that Nazis just used the language of socialism, that they weren't actually socialists, but this is completely untrue. In the 1930s, Hitler was widely viewed as just another protectionist central planner who recognised the supposed failure of the free market and the need for nationally guided economic development. Proto-Keynesian socialist economist Joan Robinson wrote that Hitler found a cure against unemployment before Keynes was finished exploring it. What were those economic policies? He suspended the gold standard, embarked on huge public works programs like autobahns, protected industry from foreign competition, expanded credit, instituted jobs programs, bullied the private sector on prices and production decisions, vastly expanded the military, enforced capital controls, instituted family planning, penalised smoking, brought about national healthcare and unemployment insurance, imposed education standards, and eventually ran huge deficits. The Nazi interventionist program was essential to the regime's rejection of the market economy and its embrace of socialism in one country. So the Nazis were indeed left-wing socialists. This is an undeniable historical fact, an inconvenient truth the leftist media would hide from you. Which brings us back to Blair and the United Patriots Front. Now that we know exactly what a Nazi is, we can critically evaluate the claim made against Blair Cottrell and the UPF. Thankfully, they have a website that includes a policies page. The mainstream media are apparently unable to find it, I guess because they are such great journalists and stuff. As most already know, the UPF take a hard line on immigration. Their policy page lists 6 actions to be taken immediately, including an immediate stop on all further Muslim immigration, ceased construction of all mosques, and destroy plans for new mosques. And this interesting policy: a federal indictment for conspiracy and treason to be issued to mainstream media organs suspected of undermining and deconstructing the Australian nationality. This is telling, not because it says anything particular about the UPF, other than their policy position, of course. It's telling because it explains the fear we see in the media when reporting on him. Blair Cottrell represents a truly existential threat to the leftist media, and they know it. Unless, of course, they haven't actually read these policies before, because journalism. Not that they would ever admit being afraid, but we all know what happens when you corner a scared pussy. What I want to focus on are their economic policies, because as we know, socialism, aka Nazism, is distinct from raw nationalism on purely economic grounds. In other words, you can be a nationalist and a free marketer. In fact, you can be a nationalist and have no economic policies at all. This isn't the case with the UPF, whose policy page is brief, but still provides more than enough information to make a clear judgment. This is their policy on tax reform. Currently, the burden of tax wrongfully lies on the Australian worker, small business owner and sole proprietor, and not the large and often internationally owned corporation. A government of the people must represent the people, not the interests of the financial elite. Our tax code must be simplified and enforced. The Australian worker, small business owner and sole proprietor is disadvantaged by our current system, as he or she cannot afford a team of lawyers to explore loopholes, while the large corporation avoids paying their fair share of tax via this method and via moving large sums of money overseas by offshoring profits to shell corporations within tax havens. Their policies are: reform and simplify Australian tax law, enforce the law, restrict offshoring of profits, shift the burden of tax from Australian worker to the international corporation, and have a consistent tax rate between business and income. Companies that have avoided paying the current profit tax will be audited and forced to either pay the sum owed over a reasonable time, or their assets will be seized and their competitors will take their market share. Inevitably, this will encourage the growth of our free enterprise and entrepreneurial spirit of Australian small business and help revitalise Australia's self-sufficiency within the national free market economy over international corporations. This doesn't look very socialistic to me. In fact, as multinational corporations usually use their power and wealth to gain favourable regulations that hurt small business, this is exactly the opposite. Let's have a look at another policy. Welfare reform. The goal of welfare is to temporarily support Australians while they are out of work or until they find work. It is the responsibility of the individual to financially support themselves and their family. Welfare must remain as a safety net, temporarily. When you are taking the taxpayers' money, they get a say in what you spend it on. More importantly, what you do not spend it on. Our good nature in regards to welfare is decaying the welfare state and is being taken advantage of. We must put an end to this damaging culture while still protecting legitimate welfare candidates. By ending the welfare state and the culture that surrounds it, ending middle-class welfare, introducing a technology-based welfare system, welfare debit card, which limits recipients from purchasing alcohol, tobacco, or other non-essential products, and introduce a work for the dole scheme for Monday and Friday for recipients who are unemployed for 6 months or longer. Work would be centered around maintenance and repair of roads and cleaning graffiti, for example. We believe that the illegal drug trade is heavily dependent on our welfare culture. Putting an end to this destructive culture will starve organised crime of victims. Sweet holy moly, ending middle class welfare, ending the welfare state, introducing welfare reform. Damn those National Socialists who want to do the complete opposite of every socialist ever. Also, whilst I personally think we should end drug prohibition, they do have a point about welfarism fueling the drug market. Just for fun, let's have a look at their environmental policy. We are committed to the sustainable use of our natural resources and mineral resources. Our vision for the future of Australia is a long-term transition to renewable energy for economic and environmental reasons. Australia, as the sunburnt country, must commit to be a leading force in the solar industry. At the same time, we must understand our growing energy needs and fulfill them in the short to medium term with a modern and efficient use of our mineral wealth, e.g. coal. Aside from the honest admission that we can't yet do away with coal, this is a policy the Greens and the left should endorse. The fact that they don't only proves what we already know. The Greens and the left care more about flooding Australia with migrants and using them to take command of the economy than they do about the environment. As noted, I've left a link to the full policies page in the description and you should definitely read it for yourself. There are certain policies I personally disagree with, including their environmental one, but as a hardline free market classical liberal libertarian conservative, I certainly support their economic policies, at least in the sense that they are going in the right direction. The policies of the UPF would hardly have been out of place in the Liberal Party of barely a decade ago. Hell, they could have fit in the Labor Party of the 1980s. They are essentially an old-school conservative party, and the only reason they get attacked is because the media are in a far-left bubble. Blair Cottrell resonates with the people for the same reason Pauline Hanson and One Nation have returned to the public light. People are aching for honesty in their politicians, especially when it comes to immigration and the religion that shall not be named. So to answer the question, are Blair Cottrell and the United Patriots Front really National Socialists, aka Nazis? Do I really have to answer this?
I need to know the answer. My brain hurts when I think.
Okay, short bus Matty. The answer is no. They are not Nazis.
But the man on the TV said that they were.
Yeah, they're lying.
What? That's not good. Lies make baby Jesus cry.
They sure do. And you know what makes the media cry?
What's that?
Losing control of the narrative and sinking into irrelevance.
It gives us the ability to cut out the middleman, to go directly to the people, to the audience with our message, to speak directly to the Australian people, which is a power that hitherto has only been beheld by established media corporations and anybody who speaks through such media corporations. But now anybody has that power. Anybody has access to that power.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you did. Check out all my other stuff and subscribe if you want to. Click the bell and you'll get notifications. Don't forget to go and check out all my other social media as well. I have a Twitter, Minds, and a Gab page, and hopefully I'll see you around.